Interview 21, Media and Society, News, Misinformation, and Critical Thinking. You've agreed to take part in a research study about news, media, and information literacy. You'll have a short online interview with a researcher who will ask you 4 questions about your experiences and opinions related to social media, journalism, and misinformation in today's society. Question 1. Can you describe a time when you read or heard false information online? How did you realize it wasn't true? What did you learn from that experience? Model response. Last year, I saw a viral post on social media claiming that a famous actor had donated millions to local charity. The story spread quickly, and many people commented about how generous he was. However, when I checked the official news websites, I discovered that it was completely false. The charity itself released a statement denying the rumor. That experience taught me how easily misinformation spreads online. Now I always verify the source before sharing anything. I learned that not everything popular on social media is trustworthy. It's important to read carefully, think critically, and confirm facts from reliable outlets. Since then, I've become much more cautious when consuming online content. Question 2. Some people prefer getting news from social media, while others trust traditional media such as newspapers or TV. Which do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer getting news from traditional media because it's usually more reliable and well-researched. Journalists follow ethical standards, while social media posts often come from unverified sources. For example, when I want to know about political or environmental issues, I read articles from international newspapers like The Guardian or BBC News. These outlets cite their evidence and update corrections if mistakes occur. On social media, anyone can post opinions that look like facts, or it's easy to get misled. Of course, social media spreads information faster, but accuracy matters more than speed. I would rather read one verified article than 20 rumors. Reliable news helps me form educated opinions and understand the world more clearly. Question 3. Some people think the media influences public opinion too much, while others say it simply reflects society. What do you think and why? Model response. I think the media both influences and reflects society, but its influence is stronger. People often shape opinions based on what they see repeatedly in news or entertainment. For example, when the media highlights stories about crime, audiences might assume the world is more dangerous than it really is. This affects how they vote, behave, or talk about safety. However, the media also reflects existing social concerns. It reports what people care about most. The problem arises when coverage becomes unbalanced or sensationalized. I believe journalists should aim for neutrality and give audiences a complete picture instead of only emotional headlines. The media's power is undeniable, so it carries a responsibility to inform rather than manipulate. Question 4. Should schools teach students how to identify misinformation and evaluate online sources? Why or why not? Model response. Yes, schools should teach media literacy because critical thinking is essential in the digital age. Students constantly interact with online content, and without proper guidance, they can easily be misinformed. For example, when my high school introduced a digital literacy course, we learned how to analyze news sources, verify citations, and check publication dates. The lessons helped me spot clickbait and fake headlines. Understanding how information spreads online makes people more responsible users. Some argue that media education belongs at home, but misinformation affects society as a whole. Teaching it in schools ensures every student develops the tools to question, evaluate, and think independently. In a world full of information, knowing how to separate truth from opinion is one of the most valuable skills. Speaking tips. Delivery. Maintain a calm, analytical tone. Avoid sounding overly emotional. Emphasize contrast words. However, of course, instead. Slightly slow down when explaining examples or definitions. Language use. Use precise terms, misinformation, verify, credibility, neutrality. Combine complex sentences with active voice for clarity. Use transition to show reasoning. For example, as result, since then. Topic development. Organize arguments logically. The claim, the example, insight. Link personal experience to social impact. End with reflective statements on responsibility and awareness. Interview 22. Education and technology. AI tools and learning. You've agreed to take part in a research study about artificial intelligence and education. You'll have a short online interview with a researcher who will ask you 4 questions about your experiences and opinions related to using AI tools for learning and studying. Question 1. Can you describe a time when you used an AI tool to help with your studies? What did it do? And what did you learn from that experience? Model response. Last semester, I used an AI language assistant to help me revise my research paper. I asked it to check for grammar errors and suggest smoother transitions. I was amazed at how quickly it analyzed my writing and offered useful recommendations. However, I noticed that some suggestions made the sentences sound less natural, so I didn't accept them all. This taught me that AI is a great support tool, but shouldn't replace human judgment. After that, I used AI as a writing coach instead of an editor. It helped me identify patterns in my mistakes. Thanks to that experience, I now pay more attention to my sentence structure and tone when writing academic papers. Question 2. Some students rely heavily on AI study tools, while others prefer traditional methods such as books and notes. Which do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer using a combination of AI tools and traditional study methods because they complement each other. AI tools save time by summarizing information or providing quick feedback, while books and notes help me understand topics deeply. For example, when preparing for an economics exam, I used AI app to quiz myself and identify weak areas. Then I returned to my textbook to study those topics in detail. The mix of technology and reading gave me both speed and accuracy. Relying on one method alone can create gaps. AI provides convenience, but books build critical thinking. Using both allows me to learn efficiently and retain knowledge longer. Question 3. Some people believe AI tools make students smarter, while others think they make students lazy. What's your opinion and why? Model response. I believe AI tools don't make students lazy, they make learning more accessible and personalized. The key lies in how we use them. If students depend on AI to do their work entirely, then yes, it can reduce effort. But when used responsibly, AI becomes an assistant, not a replacement. For example, my class used an AI app that explained complex scientific theories through visual simulations. It helped us grasp difficult concepts faster than reading text alone. That efficiency motivated me to explore further on my own. In my opinion, AI amplifies curiosity when guided by discipline. Technology is neutral, it reflects our habits. If we use it wisely, it enhances creativity rather than replacing it. Question 4. Should schools and universities allow students to use AI tools for learning and assignments? Why or why not? Model response. Yes, schools and universities should allow students to use AI tools for learning and assignments, as long as they're used ethically and with supervision. Banning AI completely doesn't make sense because it's becoming part of modern education and workplaces. Instead, educators should teach students how to use these tools responsibly. For example, by citing AI generated content properly or verifying information accuracy. My university recently introduced a policy for allowing AI for brainstorming and grammar correction, but not for full generating full essays. This approach encourages creativity while maintaining academic honesty. Understanding how to collaborate with AI prepares students for the real world where technology is an essential partner. The goal shouldn't be to avoid AI, but to master it responsibly. Speaking tips. Delivery. Speak with confident, professional tone. Show curiosity and balanced perspective. Use natural pauses before giving examples. For example, however, in my opinion, stress key words like responsibly, creativity, balance, and judgment. Language use. Include academic and tech vocabulary, summarizing, algorithms, academic integrity, and personalization. Use a blend of conditionals and complex sentences. If students depend, blah, blah, blah. When used responsibly, blah, blah, blah. Keep register formal but conversational. Topic development. Show awareness of both advantages and challenges of AI. Integrate personal experiences that connect to larger implications. Conclude each response with a reflection on responsibility and ethics. Interview 23. Health and nutrition, eating habits, and well-being. Question 1. Can you describe a time when you changed your eating habits to become healthier? What caused that change? And what did you learn from it? Model response. About a year ago, I decided to change my eating habits after feeling constantly tired. I used to skip breakfast and eat fast food for lunch because it was convenient. One day, my doctor warned me that I wasn't getting enough nutrients, so I started preparing balanced meals at home. I added more vegetables, fruits, and whole grains to my diet. At first, it was hard to give up fried foods, but after a few weeks, my energy levels improved dramatically. Cooking also became a relaxing hobby. This experience taught me that food directly influences mood and productivity. Now, I plan my meals weekly to stay consistent. Eating healthy isn't about strict dieting, it's about respecting your body. Question 2. Some people prefer eating at home while others enjoy dining out. Which do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer eating at home because it's healthier and more cost effective. When I cook, I can control ingredients, portion sizes, and hygiene. For instance, during the pandemic, I started experimenting with new recipes like homemade soups and stir fried vegetables. Cooking helped me stay creative and reduce my stress after studying. Dining out is fun occasionally, but restaurant food often contains too much oil, sugar, or salt. Another benefit of eating at home is the family connection. It brings everyone together at the table. Sharing meals creates meaningful conversations that strengthen relationships. Although it takes time to prepare food, the benefits to health and budget make it worthwhile. Question 3. Some people believe healthy eating is expensive, while others say it's about making smarter choices. What's your opinion and why? Model response. I believe healthy eating is about making smarter choices rather than spending more money. Many people assume that nutritious food must be costly, but simple items like rice, beans, eggs, and seasonal vegetables are affordable and nourishing. The problem is that processed snacks are more convenient and heavily advertised. For example, instead of buying chips, I prepare popcorn at home. It's cheaper and healthier. Meal planning also saves money by reducing food waste. I think education is key. Once people learn how to shop and cook wisely, healthy eating becomes easier. It's not about fancy products, it's about balance, preparation, and awareness. Question 4. Should governments promote healthy eating through public campaigns or taxes on unhealthy food? Why or why not? Model response. Yes, governments should promote healthy eating through both education campaigns and taxes on unhealthy products. Many people don't understand nutrition labels or the long term effects of processed foods. For example, when my country introduced higher taxes on sugary drinks, consumption dropped significantly within 6 months. Public campaigns in schools and social media can further encourage families to cook more and avoid excessive junk food. Critics argue that taxes are unfair, but they actually motivate healthier choices and reduce healthcare costs in the long run. Governments already regulate cigarettes and alcohol, so food should be no different. Promoting balanced diets is an investment in a stronger, healthier population. Speaking tips. Delivery. Use a warm, conversational tone. Slow slightly when giving examples or personal reflections. Emphasize key words like balance, habit, awareness, responsibility. Maintain positive energy when discussing health improvements. Language use. Use health related vocabulary, nutrients, processed food, portions, moderation. Include cause effect structures because, as a result, therefore. Keep sentence rhythm smooth with natural pauses between ideas. Topic development. Combine personal stories with general insights about society. Conclude each answer with reflection or broader implication. Maintain clear logical flow, challenge, change, lesson. Interview 24. Education and reading. The role of books in modern learning. You have agreed to take part in a research study about the importance of reading and the role of books in education today. You'll have a short online interview with a researcher who will ask you 4 questions about your experiences and opinions related to books, reading habits, and modern learning. Question 1. Can you describe a book that had a big impact on your life or studies? What was the book about? And what did you learn from it? Model response. 2 years ago, I read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and it completely changed how I think about goals and destiny. The book tells the story of a young shepherd who travels across a desert to find a hidden treasure, only to realize that the real treasure lies in personal growth. At the time, I was struggling with uncertainty about my future career. The main character's persistence inspired me to trust the process and take small steps toward my goals. I learned that success isn't about luck, it's about courage and consistency. Since then, I've become more positive and focused on self improvement. That book reminded me that every challenge is part of the journey. Question 2. Some people prefer reading printed books, while others enjoy ebooks. Which do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer reading printed books because they help me concentrate better and feel more connected to the story. When I read on a screen, notifications or bright light often distract me. The physical act of turning pages makes reading slower, but also more thoughtful. For instance, I love reading novels in coffee shops where I can underline favorite lines or write small notes in the margins. That interaction helps me remember ideas more clearly. Ebooks are more convenient for travel, to be sure, but printed books offer a sensory experience, the smell of paper, and the sound of pages turning that technology cannot replace. Reading from a real book feels calm and personal, almost like a conversation between the author and me. Question 3. Some people say reading is becoming less important because of online videos and social media. What do you think and why? Model response. I think reading is more important than ever because it develops concentration and critical thinking. Videos are entertaining, but they often provide quick information without depth. Reading requires patience and imagination. You create pictures in your mind instead of simply watching them. For example, when I read historical fiction, I understand both facts and emotions, something that short videos cannot always deliver. Social media can inform us, but it also shortens attention spans. Reading builds mental stamina, helping us analyze ideas and empathize with different perspectives. In my opinion, books remain the best way to strengthen the mind in a fast, distracted world. Question 4. Should schools encourage students to read more books outside the required curriculum? Why or why not? Model response. Yes, schools should absolutely encourage students to read beyond the curriculum because independent reading expands curiosity and creativity. When students choose their own books, they read for enjoyment instead of obligation, which builds a lifelong habit. For example, my school launched a free reading Friday program, allowing students to bring any book they like. Participation was high, and even reluctant readers became more enthusiastic. Reading different genres also improves vocabulary and empathy by exposing students to diverse perspectives. Of course, teachers can guide recommendations, but freedom of choice is key. Encouraging vocabulary reading helps students discover their passions and develop independent thinking. Skills that are just as valuable as academic knowledge. I actually was just say encouraging voluntary reading. I apologize. Okay, speaking tips for interview 24. Remember that every now and then I put the tips after each response. These are really important tips to help you improve your speaking proficiency. Delivery. Use a reflective tone. Slow slightly when describing emotions or insights. Highlight verbs showing thought and feeling. Realized, inspired, learned. Pause briefly before lessons or conclusions for emphasis. Language use. Incorporate reading-related vocabulary, imagination, perspective, concentration, empathy. Mix narrative tenses and present simple for general truths. Use comparisons and metaphors. Reading is like a conversation with the author. Topic development. Connect personal experience to broader educational values. Include emotional growth or perspective shifts as takeaways. Conclude each answer with a forward-looking reflection on lifelong learning. Interview 25, Environment and Urban Living, Green Cities, and Public Transportation. You have agreed to take part in a research study about urban living and environmentally friendly city design. You'll have a short online interview with a researcher who will ask you 4 questions about your experiences and opinions related to public transportation, green spaces, and sustainable cities. Question 1. Can you describe a time when you used public transportation regularly? What did you like or dislike about it? Model response. When I was studying in Seoul, I used public transportation almost every day, mainly buses and the subway. What I liked most was how efficient and affordable it was. The trains arrived every few minutes, and the routes were clearly marked in both Korean and English. The system made getting around the city simple, even for foreigners. However, during rush hour, the subway became extremely crowded, which was sometimes stressful. Still, I preferred it to driving because it saved time and reduced pollution. Using public transport also taught me discipline. I had to manage my schedule precisely to catch the right train. Overall, I admired how a well-organized transit system can make city life smoother and more sustainable. Question 2. Some people prefer driving their own car, while others prefer using public transportation. Which do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer using public transportation because it's cheaper, better for the environment, and less stressful. Driving can be convenient, but in big cities, traffic jams and parking problems make it frustrating. For instance, when I lived in Tokyo, owning a car didn't make much sense because the subway system was faster and more reliable. I also enjoy reading or listening to podcasts during my commute instead of focusing on the road. Public transportation allows me to relax and use my time productively. Of course, cars are useful for long trips or emergencies, but for daily routines, I think shared transit is the smartest choice. It helps reduce carbon emissions and promotes a cleaner urban atmosphere. Question 3. Some people think cities should focus on building more roads, while others believe they should invest in public transportation. What's your opinion and why? Model response. I believe cities should invest in public transportation rather than building more roads. Expanding roads often encourages more people to drive, which leads to more congestion and more pollution. In contrast, better public transit reduces traffic and helps protect the environment. For example, my city recently added new electric buses and bicycle lanes. As a result, air quality improved and fewer people use private cars. Public transportation also makes cities more inclusive. Students, elderly people, and low income families all benefit. Investing in green transit is smarter for long term urban planning because it saves space, money, and energy. Roads will always be necessary, but sustainable transport should be the top priority for modern cities. Question 4. Should local governments offer free or discounted public transportation to encourage eco friendly travel? Why or why not? Model response. Yes, local governments should offer free or discounted public transportation because it encourages people to use it more often and helps reduce pollution. For instance, my city introduced free weekend bus rides last year, and the results were impressive. More families explored the city without driving, and the traffic decreased by almost 20%. Subsidizing transportation may seem costly, but it saves money in the long run through lower fuel consumption and healthcare costs from cleaner air. Some critics argue it's not sustainable, but governments can balance the budget by increasing taxes on luxury vehicles or parking fees. Making public transport affordable helps create a greener, fairer city for everyone. It's a small investment with major environmental and social benefits. Speaking tips. Delivery. Use an energetic tone to show enthusiasm about urban improvement. Stress contrast pairs. Driving versus public transit. Roads versus buses. Keep rhythm steady with slight pauses before examples. Language use. Use urban planning and environmental vocabulary, infrastructure, congestion, emissions, sustainability. The more of these words you use, the more connected your response is to the task, and the higher your score will be. Combine cause effect transitions as a result, therefore, in contrast. Maintain consistent verb tenses when comparing experiences and opinions. Topic development. Link personal experiences to broader policy implications. Structure answers around problem, solution, benefit. Conclude with forward-looking statements about sustainable cities. Interview 26, Education and Testing. Standardized exams and student potential. You've agreed to take part in a research study about standardized testing and how it affects students and education systems. You'll have a short online interview with a researcher who will ask you 4 questions about your experiences and opinions related to exams, assessments, and learning potential. Question 1. Can you describe a time when you took a difficult exam? How did you prepare, and what did you learn from the experience? Model response. Last year, I took the TOEFL exam, which is one of the most challenging tests I've ever faced. To prepare, I studied for 2 hours every day, focusing on listening and speaking sections because they were my weakest areas. I used practice materials, timed myself, and recorded my speaking responses for feedback. On test day, I was nervous but well prepared. I scored higher than expected, and that success boosted my confidence. What I learned from the experience was that consistent practice is more effective than cramming. I also discovered that exams measure not only knowledge, but also strategy and endurance. Since then, I approach every test with patience and structure instead of stress. Question 2. Some students prefer multiple choice exams, while others prefer essay-based assessments. Which do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer essay-based assessments because they allow me to express my ideas and show critical thinking. Multiple choice questions can be tricky. They sometimes test memory more than understanding. In contrast, essays give students a chance to explain reasoning and demonstrate creativity. For instance, in my sociology class, I wrote an essay about inequality and supported it with examples from real life. My professor appreciated my analysis, even though my grammar wasn't perfect. Essay exams may take more time, but they reflect true comprehension. Of course, multiple choice tests are efficient for grading, but I believe education should value depth over speed. Writing forces you to organize thoughts clearly, which is a useful skill beyond the classroom. Question 3. Some people believe standardized exams accurately measure student ability, while others disagree. What do you think and why? Model response. I think standardized exams provide some insight into student ability, but they do not tell the whole story. They measure performance under pressure, not creativity or teamwork. For example, my friend is an excellent artist, but doesn't perform well on written tests. That doesn't mean that she's less intelligent. It just shows that exams favor certain learning styles. Standardized tests are useful for evaluating large groups quickly, but they shouldn't be the only measure of success. Education should also assess projects, participation, and problem-solving skills. In my opinion, exams should complement, not dominate, evaluation systems. True potential cannot always be captured by a number. Question 4. Should universities continue using standardized test scores for admissions decisions? Why or why not? Model response. Universities should use standardized test scores as one factor, but not the main requirement for admission. Tests like the TOEFL or the SAT provide objective comparisons, but they don't reflect personal qualities such as motivation or leadership. For example, during the pandemic, some universities made tests optional, and they noticed that student diversity increased without lowering academic performance. This proves that potential can be evaluated in multiple ways through essays, interviews, and recommendations. Standardized tests are helpful for fairness, but relying on them too much creates stress and inequality. Schools should look at the complete picture of each applicant rather than a single score. Speaking tips for interview 26. Delivery. Use a confident academic tone. Keep pace consistent for clarity. Emphasize comparison words. In contrast, however, instead. Slight pause before key conclusions. Since then, in my opinion. Language use. Include academic testing vocabulary, assessment, performance, evaluation, comprehension. Use varied sentence types, conditionals, cause-effect, and complex structures. Maintain formal and precise tone throughout. Topic development. Present balanced viewpoints backed by personal or observed examples. End each response with insight or reflection about fairness and learning. Show ability to link personal experience to broader education policy. Interview 27. Environment and tourism. Ecotourism and conservation. You've agreed to take part in research study about tourism and environmental conservation. You'll have a short online interview with a researcher who will ask you 4 questions about your experiences and opinions related to sustainable travel and ecotourism. Question 1. Can you describe a time when you visited a place known for its natural beauty? What impressed you the most? And what did you learn from that experience? Model response. Last summer, I visited a national park famous for its waterfalls and wildlife. What impressed me most was how clean and well preserved everything was. Park rangers constantly reminded visitors to follow eco-friendly rules like staying on marked trails and not feeding animals. I noticed how these small rules help protect the environment. I also learned that conservation depends on cooperation. Every visitor plays a role. When I returned home, I started volunteering with a local group that plants trees and promotes recycling. That trip made me realize that natural beauty is fragile but worth protecting. Seeing the park's harmony between humans and nature inspired me to live more sustainably in daily life. Question 2. Some people prefer luxury vacations, while others enjoy eco-friendly or adventure travel. Which type of vacation do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer eco-friendly travel because it allows me to enjoy nature while learning how to protect it. Luxury vacations are comfortable, but they often produce more waste and use excessive resources. For example, when I traveled to a mountain village in Nepal, I stayed at a small eco lodge that used solar energy and served locally grown food. That experience felt authentic and meaningful. I met local residents who shared stories about preserving their environment, which made the trip educational as well as relaxing. I think sustainable tourism creates memories that last longer than temporary comfort. It feels good to know that my vacation supports local communities instead of harming them. Question 3. Some people say tourism harms the environment, while others believe it can help conservation. What is your opinion and why? Model response. I believe tourism can both harm and help the environment depending on how it's managed. Irresponsible tourism, like littering, deforestation, or overbuilding, damages ecosystems. However, when organized properly, tourism can fund conservation projects and raise awareness. For instance, many African countries use entrance fees from national parks to support wildlife protection. Tourists bring economic benefits that motivate locals to preserve natural resources. The key is balance. Governments and travelers must work together to minimize impact. If visitors follow rules and spend money responsibly, tourism becomes a tool for sustainability rather than destruction. Education is the foundation of that balance. Question 4. Should governments limit the number of tourists in natural parks and protected areas? Why or why not? Model response. Yes, government should limit tourist numbers in protected areas to prevent environmental damage. Too many visitors can harm wildlife habitats, increase pollution, and strain local infrastructure. For example, in Thailand, authorities temporarily closed an island to restore coral reefs that had been damaged by mass tourism. After the closure, marine life began to recover. Limiting access doesn't mean excluding people. It ensures that future generations can enjoy the same beauty. Governments can use reservation systems or rotate entry times to control traffic while maintaining revenue. Responsible tourism isn't about quantity, it's about quality. Protecting natural spaces should always come before profit. Speaking tips for interview 27. Delivery. Use an inspired tone when describing nature. Emphasize positive emotions. Beautiful, peaceful, inspiring. Slow slightly for storytelling and examples. Use upward intonation to highlight balance and solutions. Language use. Include sustainability vocabulary, ecosystem, conservation, biodiversity, renewable, sustainable, tourism. Use transition words, however, for example, as a result or therefore, to show the organization of your ideas. Maintain clear verb tenses for past experiences and general opinions. And by maintaining consistency with verb tenses, it helps create unity within your paragraph. Topic development. Structure answers as experience, lesson, impact, reflection. Connect personal actions to environmental responsibility. Finish with forward-looking insights about protecting nature. Interview 28. Technology and society, automation, and the future of work. You've agreed to take part in a research study about automation and how technology is changing the modern workplace. You'll have a short online interview with a researcher who will ask you 4 questions about your experiences and opinions related to robots, AI, and the future of employment. Question 1. Can you describe a time when technology changed the way you or someone you know worked or studied? What was the change, and what did you learn from it? Model response. Last year, my uncle's company introduced an automated inventory system that replaced many manual tasks. Before, many employees used to record product numbers by hand, which took hours. The new system used scanners and software to track everything instantly. My uncle was worried that the automation would reduce staff jobs, but instead, it allowed workers to focus more on creative tasks like logistics planning and customer service. He said productivity increased while stress decreased. Watching that transformation taught me that technology isn't always a threat. It can make work more meaningful when used wisely. Automation can remove repetitive work and give humans more time for innovation and decision making. Question 2. Some people believe jobs that use technology heavily, while others like work that involves more human interaction. Which do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer jobs that balance technology and human interaction. Technology helps them stay organized and efficient, but real satisfaction comes from communicating and collaborating with people. For example, I once worked part-time at a tutoring center that used online scheduling and feedback software. The technology made administrative tasks simple, so I could focus on helping students directly. That balance of digital tools and face-to-face conversation made the job rewarding. If a workplace relies only on machines, it can feel impersonal. On the other hand, jobs with technology can be slow or disorganized. Let me reread that. Jobs without technology can be slow or disorganized. The best environment, in my opinion, uses both strengths: tech for productivity and people for creativity. You see how when you have those 2 items, you have I like apples and oranges. So tech for productivity and people for creativity. So make sure that you vary your tone when you speak. It's very important. Question 3. Some people think automation will take away most human jobs, while others believe it will create new ones. What's your opinion and why? Model response. I think automation will create new jobs rather than eliminate them completely. While machines may replace repetitive tasks, new positions will emerge in programming, maintenance, and design. For example, when factories started using robots for assembly, engineers and technicians were needed to operate and repair them. Similarly, AI tools now require experts in data science and ethics. The nature of work will change, but opportunities will remain. People just need to adapt by learning new skills. History shows that every major technological shift from the Industrial Revolution to the digital age has transformed jobs rather than destroyed them. I believe automation will make work smarter, not smaller. Question 4. Should governments create programs to help workers who lose jobs due to automation? Why or why not? Model response. Yes, government should support workers affected by automation through retraining and education programs. As technology evolves, many people, especially older employees, may struggle to adapt. For example, some manufacturing workers in my city lost jobs when machines replaced their roles. However, after attending government-funded IT courses, many found new employment in technical support or logistics. These programs benefit both individuals and the economy by preventing long-term unemployment. Instead of resisting technology, government should help citizens learn how to work with it, offer training, career counseling, and financial assistance creates smoother transition toward the digital future. Investing in people is the best way to ensure progress benefits everyone. Speaking tips. Delivery. Maintain confident, informative tone. Use moderate pacing. Emphasize optimism through intonation when discussing the future. Slightly pause before examples or policy recommendations. Language use. Include workplace and tech terms, automation, digital tools, retraining, innovation. Use balanced clauses while, instead, however. Keep formal but natural language. Avoid jargon or buzzwords. Topic development. Each answer should follow this logic: challenge, example, solution, insight. Link personal observations to global trends. End each response with a hopeful or forward-looking conclusion. Interview 29. Health and exercise. Balancing fitness and daily life. You've agreed to take part in a research study about health, exercise, and work-life balance. You'll have a short online interview with a researcher who will ask you 4 questions about your experiences and opinions related to staying fit and maintaining a healthy lifestyle in a busy schedule. Question 1. Can you describe a time when you struggled to find balance in your fitness with school or work? What did you do? What did you learn from that experience? Model response. Last semester, I was taking 5 classes and working part-time, so I barely had time to exercise. At first, I completely stopped going to the gym and I felt tired all the time. Eventually, I realized that skipping workouts was making me less productive, not more. I started doing 20-minute home workouts every morning before class. It was a small change, but it gave me more energy throughout the day. I also walked to campus instead of taking the bus whenever possible. Within a few weeks, I noticed my focus and mood improving. I learned that fitness doesn't require hours, it just requires consistency. Even short workouts can make a huge difference when you're busy. Question 2. Some people prefer exercising indoors, while others like outdoor workouts. Which do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer exercising outdoors because it makes me feel free and connected to nature. When I jog in the park, I enjoy the fresh air, changing scenery, and sounds of birds or people playing sports. It feels more relaxing than being inside a crowded gym. For example, during the pandemic, I started running along a nearby river every weekend. The sunlight and open space helped me clear my mind and release stress from studying. Of course, indoor gyms are great for weight training in bad weather, but outdoor exercise refreshes both my body and mind. It's not just physical, it's emotional therapy. Being outside reminds me to appreciate simple things like sunshine and movement. Question 3. Some people say modern technology makes people less active, while others believe it helps them stay fit. What do you think and why? Model response. I think technology can help people stay fit when used correctly. Fitness watches, smartwatches, and online workout programs make it easier to track progress and stay motivated. For example, I use a step counting app that reminds me to move if I've been sitting too long. It turns exercise into a daily challenge, which keeps me accountable. However, technology can also encourage laziness. People spend hours sitting in front of screens. The key is balance. We should use tech as a tool, not a distraction. When people use technology mindfully, it supports healthy habits instead of replacing them. Question 4. Should schools or workplaces include exercise programs or breaks to improve health and productivity? Why or why not? Model response. Yes, I think schools and workplaces should include short exercise breaks because physical movement improves focus and reduces stress. For example, my university added a 5-minute stretching session at the beginning of long classes, and it made a noticeable difference. Students became more alert and less restless. Similarly, some companies now have wellness hours where employees can take a walk or do yoga. These programs promote both mental and physical health, which leads to better performance. Some people argue it wastes time, but healthy individuals work more efficiently. Encouraging movement is an investment in productivity. A few minutes of exercise can prevent hours of fatigue. Speaking tips. Delivery. Use a lively, upbeat tone to reflect energy and positivity. Emphasize action verbs. Run, move, walk, stretch. Slightly pause before lessons or reflections. Language use. Integrate health-related vocabulary. Stamina, focus, mindfulness, wellness. Use cause-effect structures because, as a result, therefore. Mix descriptive phrases and personal reflections naturally. Topic development. Organize answers around a problem, solution, outcome, and then lesson. Connect personal experiences to universal ideas about wellness. Conclude with insight on maintaining health in modern life. Interview 30. Education and motivation. Online learning versus traditional learning. You've agreed to take part in a research study about online learning and traditional education methods. You will have a short online interview with a researcher who will ask you 4 questions about your experiences and opinions related to studying online and in person. Question 1. Can you describe a time when you took an online course or class? What did you like or dislike about the experience? Model response. During the pandemic, I took an online course in data analytics through a university platform. I liked how flexible the schedule was. I could study anytime and replay recorded lectures when I didn't understand a concept. However, I missed the personal connection with classmates and professors. Sometimes it felt lonely because discussion boards couldn't replace real conversations. The hardest part was staying motivated without physical reminders like classmates or class bells. Still, the course improved my self-discipline and time management. I learned that success in online learning depends on an organization and active participation. Now, when I take digital classes, I set daily goals and schedule study sessions like real lectures. Question 2. Some students prefer online learning, while others prefer traditional classroom learning. Which do you prefer and why? Model response. I prefer traditional classroom learning because face-to-face interaction keeps me focused and motivated. In-person classes allow me to ask questions immediately, participate in discussions, and read the teacher's expressions. For example, when I studied psychology last semester, my professor's enthusiasm made complex topics easier to understand. Online classes are convenient, but they lack human energy. Also, the classroom environment creates structure. When I physically go to class, I'm in the right mindset to learn. Of course, digital learning is useful for flexibility, but I believe traditional education builds stronger connections and communication skills. Learning is more than receiving information. It's also about shared experiences. Question 3. Some people say online learning is the future of education, while others believe schools will always be necessary. What do you think and why? Model response. I think online learning will continue to grow, but traditional schools will always remain important. Technology can't replace the social and emotional parts of education. For example, online classes are great for people with jobs or families, but young students need structure, teamwork, and direct feedback. Schools also provide a sense of community that digital platforms can't fully replicate. However, the future may combine both models. Hybrid learning, where students attend some classes online and others in person, seems ideal. It gives flexibility without losing connection. In my view, education will evolve, not disappear. It's about balance, not replacement. Question 4. Should universities offer more online degree programs for students who live far away or work full time? Why or why not? Model response. Yes, universities should expand online degree programs to make education more accessible. Many talented people can attend traditional classes due to work or family responsibilities. Online programs allow them to continue learning without leaving their jobs. For instance, my cousin completed an online master's degree while working full time, and it helped her earn a promotion. Technology now enables video lectures, live discussions, and group projects just like in-person classes. Some worry that online degrees have less value, but as long as universities maintain the same standards, the quality remains high. Expanding online options promotes equal opportunity and lifelong learning. Education shouldn't depend on location, it should be available to anyone willing to learn. Speaking tips. Delivery. Use balanced tone. Express both advantages and drawbacks calmly. Pause slightly before contrasting ideas. However, of course, on the other hand, keep pace consistent. Sound organized and confident. Language use. Employ education-related vocabulary, curriculum, hybrid learning, accessibility, motivation. Combine past experiences with general observations. Use transitions to highlight cause and effect. As a result, for instance, therefore. Topic development. Organize each response, situation, example, insight, conclusion. Show understanding of both perspectives before giving your opinion. End each answer with a takeaway about lifelong learning or adaptability.